this time it's the Polish 7TP, 7TP standing for 7-ton Polish, and this tank was based on the Vickers 6-ton Mark E tank, which was the granddaddy of a lot of early war tanks, and this particular model was made from 1935 to 1939 when production stopped for obvious reasons, and I think only about 150 of these were made in total. And the kit is made by a company called Spojnia, though I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that at all correctly. But this was another one of my eBay finds. It was going cheap, so I snapped it up. So anyway, let's open up the box and look inside. Here's the instructions. They're quite simple. It's just one sheet of paper essentially, but it all looks fairly comprehensible. Nothing to complain about here. And at the back we can see all the camouflage patterns and the painting schemes. And there seem to be two sets of decals. You've got this leaping panther or a bison. Yeah, it's all in Polish. There's no English there at all, unfortunately. So whatever details I've been able to find about this tank, I've had to get from Wikipedia. Now for the model itself, in a rather shocking blue, which is very unusual. I've never seen anything like that. And the tracks are this sort of vinyl plastic. But let's have a closer look. So here are the tracks again. Quite a rigid plastic and fairly featureless. The sprues all look pretty good though, I have to say. There's no obvious issues with this, though I did find a few when I was making the model, but nothing serious. But there's not much to it, it's just the two. There's a fair amount of detail, but it does look pretty crude compared to a lot of the models I've been making recently. Oh, and here's the decals. You can just about see them. You can just about make them out there. Yeah, fairly primitive all told, really. So there you are, and the next time you see it, it'll have been put together. I quite like the box art on this one. It's quite a dramatic picture, isn't it? And there she blows. And I put most of it together. Quite an interesting feature of this model is that the wheels are all articulated. They're all designed to be free rotating, except for the ones at the back. And the turret turns, and the gun goes up and down, and the front wheels turn, and all the bogies turn. But the wheel at the back doesn't, it has to be glued in place. Which defeats the object of having the other wheels turning at all, really, doesn't it? I mean, there's not much point the other wheels turning if the back one doesn't. So I don't understand why that decision was made. Now something that's a little bit disappointing is the tool set, which you can see on the top runner there, and those are just printed into the plastic rather than being separate. So my intention is to grind that down to make that flat, and then get some tools from another kit. And the kit I'm going to use is this is Mini Art tool set in 1/35 scale. So I'll get a shovel and some crowbars off here and add them to my model. Should make it look a little bit better. And here's the track again, and it is very rigid plastic, and as I said before, it's fairly featureless. There's very little detail on there. It doesn't look at all authentic. I did look at the possibility of buying a replacement track set, but they're very expensive and I don't think it's going to be worth it for this model. Yeah, so overall it looks quite neat, but I find it hard to get over this blue colour, to be honest with you. It just looks so weird, very peculiar. Back again, I thought I would do an experiment with this tank. I'd seen this technique where you can thin the plastic and then make holes in the outside to represent shell damage. And I thought I'd try it on this model. Now the problem is that the model's been built, and the only way to thin the plastic is to grind it down from the inside. So what I've done here is just chop the bottom out of this tank. I got my Dremel tool out and the circular saw, and I just chopped out the bottom. And then I used some grinding tools on the Dremel just to get in there and grind out a lot of the plastic. So I've made about half a dozen thin spots, and you can just see a couple of them here, just at the top there, just pointing them out. So I've done a few of those on each side. And here's where the grinding tool accidentally went straight through, but we can live with that. If I get this light up, you'll see the glowing spots where the plastic's been thinned. So without this thinning process, any holes you make in the outside will just look like you've been borrowing holes through plastic. It doesn't look very authentic at all. But once it's thinned, it should be okay. We should be able to make realistic puncture holes representing shell damage. So I'm going to have a go poking a hole in this bit here. I've just got an old compass. So I'm going to stab that into the thinned plastic. Here we go, a little bit of pressure. That goes in quite easily. Then the idea is to distort the plastic by getting in there with a tool and really making a bit of a dent. So there we go, that's not too bad. It's a little bit irregular at the moment, but I think we can do some more work on that, make it look a little bit more interesting. And the idea is to do similar with all the other weakened spots around the tank. So there's a couple down there, and there's a few more at the front on the glasses, and then some more on the side. You can see where the plastic has almost partially melted there with the heat of the grinding. A few more spots on the back as well. So yeah, this will be quite an interesting little experiment. And here she is all painted up. I'm fairly pleased with it. It's not looking too bad. So it's been painted and weathered. I used 3 colours for the camouflage. Sort of a khaki, a brown and a green. And I applied it using masking fluid. But I'm not going to do that again. I've decided I don't like masking fluid. The edges you get on the paint are just too jagged really. You can see some of the holes I've made in the side. I mean, they work pretty well, but they're quite hard to see once it's painted up. So yeah, after the painting there was pin washing with black and dark ochre oil paints. As well as the pin wash, I also did a bit of dry brushing here and there. Then it was a question of applying the usual rust, mud and dust. Unfortunately the decals don't look too great. You'll see I chose the leaping Jaguar design. And the tracks are terrible, frankly. They're just really too rigid. They don't look authentic at all. And the only way I could get them to stick together is to actually staple them, believe it or not. There's staples on both sides. You just make them out of there. It's absolutely ridiculous. I just could not get them to stick. I've tried all sorts of different glues. So unfortunately the tracks don't look authentic at all. Though I've tried to do as much as I can in terms of weathering them. They still look pretty naff. Something else I did was grind out the end of the gun there. And also the exhaust pipe. Just to make them look a bit more realistic. I mean, there's more I could do on this tank, but really I've had enough of it. After the track went on, I sort of lost interest slightly. I realised it was never going to look that good. So this is my finished results. I think I'm going to put it to bed now. This might interest you. This is a T26 tank, which I made a little while ago and did a video about. And both the T26 and the Polish tank are both based on the Vickers 6-ton Mark E. And you can see the similarity in the hull, especially in the wheels. But you can see how much better the tracks look on the T26. Interestingly, when the 7PT first came out, it was also a double turret tank, but they decided to go for a single turret in the end. Yeah, so from certain angles they're virtually identical, aren't they? Anyway, that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again for the next one. So until next time, I'll say goodbye. Okay then, cheerio.